Tom Hanks is often described as the most trusted face in Hollywood, someone whose presence feels familiar and safe across generations. His films have shaped childhoods, comforted audiences during difficult times, and reminded people of simple human goodness. Yet behind the warmth of his smile and the steadiness of his voice is a life shaped by loneliness, health struggles, family conflict, and quiet regret. This is not a story meant to diminish his success, but to understand it more deeply. By looking at the challenges he carried off screen, we see how pain, endurance, and empathy shaped the man audiences admire. His journey reveals that survival, not fame, is his greatest achievement. A childhood without roots. Tom Hanks's early life was defined by instability rather than security. His parents' divorce came when he was very young, and the years that followed were filled with constant movement between households and guardians. Without a permanent home, he never experienced the comfort of routine or belonging. Schools changed often, friendships were temporary, and loneliness became familiar. He was shy, socially awkward, and frequently the outsider in class. Instead of rebelling, he became observant, watching people closely to understand how they connected. This habit quietly shaped his future. Studying behavior became a survival tool, one that later transformed into remarkable acting depth. The isolation he felt as a child did not disappear, but it evolved into empathy. Many of his most memorable roles reflect that emotional distance and longing for connection. What looks like natural talent on screen is rooted in a childhood spent learning how to read people simply to feel less alone. Learning to endure rejection. When Tom Hanks chose acting, the journey was anything but smooth. Early adulthood brought financial strain, uncertainty, and constant rejection. He worked small roles, took side jobs, and lived modestly, often unsure if the next audition would lead anywhere. The industry did not immediately recognize him as special. His politeness and sincerity stood out, but not always in ways that helped. In a world that rewarded sharp ambition, his gentle nature was sometimes mistaken for weakness. Still, he refused to harden himself. Each rejection taught patience rather than bitterness. He showed up prepared, respectful, and open, even when the odds were against him. These years built resilience that could not be taught in acting school. They also grounded him, reminding him what it felt like to struggle. That memory would later allow him to portray ordinary people with extraordinary honesty, earning trust from audiences who saw themselves in his characters. Redefining the leading man. Tom Hanks's rise to fame began with comedy, where his warmth and humor quickly won over audiences. Films that showcased his charm made him popular, but he wanted more than laughter. He wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. Transitioning into dramatic roles required risk and courage. When he took on emotionally demanding characters, he committed fully, pushing his body and mind to uncomfortable extremes. Weight loss, isolation, and emotional immersion became part of his process. These choices brought acclaim, but they also came at a cost. The pressure to deliver authenticity meant carrying heavy emotional weight long after filming ended. While success followed, so did exhaustion. Fame amplified expectations, leaving little room to rest or recover. The public saw triumph, but not the toll it took. Redefining himself professionally meant sacrificing personal comfort, a pattern that would later affect his health and perspective on longevity. The hidden physical toll. Years of transforming his body for roles eventually caught up with Tom Hanks. Extreme weight changes placed strain on his system, contributing to long-term health issues. When he publicly acknowledged living with a chronic condition, it shifted how many people saw him. He was no longer just the symbol of reliability and strength, but someone managing vulnerability behind the scenes. This reality forced him to slow down and become more mindful of his limits. Later, health scares reinforced the truth that even the most admired figures are not immune to physical decline. Recovery required discipline and acceptance, not just determination. For someone used to pushing through discomfort, learning to listen to his body was a humbling process. These experiences reshaped his priorities, reminding him that health is not something to sacrifice endlessly for work. Strength, he learned, sometimes means restraint rather than endurance. Young love and lasting guilt. Before fame reshaped his life, Tom Hanks entered marriage and fatherhood at a young age. The responsibilities arrived faster than he was emotionally prepared for. Financial stress and career uncertainty placed strain on the relationship, and the marriage eventually ended. Though time passed, the emotional weight of that chapter never fully lifted. He carried guilt about how the separation affected his children, questioning whether his choices caused them pain. Even as his public image became that of the ideal father figure, privately he wrestled with self-doubt. When his former partner later faced serious illness, he supported her quietly, without attention or recognition. This sense of responsibility reflected his character, but also deepened unresolved feelings. The experience taught him that some regrets do not fade with success. Instead, they settle quietly, influencing how a person loves, parents, and reflects on the past. Finding stability in partnership. Meeting Rita Wilson marked a turning point in Tom Hanks's personal life. Their connection was built on mutual respect, shared humor, and emotional safety. Unlike earlier relationships shaped by youth and pressure, this partnership matured alongside his career. Rita became a grounding presence, offering balance in an industry known for instability. Their marriage grew stronger through shared challenges rather than being tested by them. When illness entered their lives years later, their bond was truly revealed. Tom shifted seamlessly into the role of caregiver, offering patience and unwavering support. Watching someone you love face uncertainty requires a different kind of courage, one rooted in vulnerability. Together, they faced fear without retreating from each other. Their relationship became a testament to endurance, showing that love is sustained not by perfection, but by commitment during hardship. Facing public health crises. When Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson fell ill during a global health crisis, the news resonated worldwide. For many, he symbolized reassurance, and seeing him vulnerable shook public confidence. His openness about the experience helped normalize fear and recovery, reminding people that illness does not discriminate. Though he recovered, the experience left lingering effects, reinforcing the importance of caution and self-care. Public reaction revealed how deeply people associate him with safety and stability. Privately, the experience reminded him of mortality and unpredictability. It became another chapter in learning how quickly circumstances can change. Rather than retreating, he used his voice calmly, offering reassurance without minimizing reality. His response reflected the same steadiness audiences had trusted for decades, now grounded in lived experience rather than performance. The quiet pain of parenthood. Fatherhood brought Tom Hanks immense pride, but also deep concern. Watching his children grow into adulthood came with challenges he could not control. While one child built a steady career, another struggled publicly, drawing attention and controversy. As a parent, this contrast was painful. Headlines and speculation added pressure, forcing him to confront the limits of influence. He chose not to publicly comment, protecting family privacy even as scrutiny continued. This silence was not indifference, but restraint. Loving a child through struggle requires patience, humility, and acceptance that solutions are not always immediate. For someone who built a career on fixing problems within stories, this reality was especially difficult. It taught him that some roles offer no clear resolution, only ongoing hope and presence. A legacy built on humanity. Tom Hanks's legacy is not defined solely by awards or box office success. It lives in the trust audiences place in him and the empathy he brings to every role. His life story reveals a man shaped by hardship who chose compassion over bitterness. The quiet battles he endured added depth rather than diminishing his light. By continuing to show up with honesty and care, he demonstrated that resilience does not require perfection. It requires presence. His journey reminds us that behind every familiar face is a human story filled with struggle and strength. In choosing to keep going without losing kindness, Tom Hanks created a legacy rooted not just in entertainment, but in humanity itself.